On this episode of ResiWeek, understanding architects, video calibration, and big box smart home failures. All this and more on this episode of ResiWeek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is ResiWeek episode 205, Muscle Memory Matters.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by
Draper, focused on innovative solutions.
Welcome to ResiWeek. This is your weekly wrap-up of all the latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matt D. Scott for AVNation.tv. And this week, the first episode of 2020, we are pleased to be joined by three of my favorite people. First of all, it is Henry Clifford. He is the president of Livewire and the co-founder of Paracel. How are you, sir?
Fantastic, Matt. Thanks for having me today. Happy New Year.
Hey, same to you. Thank you so much for being here. Then we have Jeremy Glowacki. He is the executive editor of Residential Tech Today. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. And last and certainly not least, one of my favorite New Yorkers, Mark Feinberg. He is the president of Home Theater Advisors. How are you, sir?
Doing great, Matt. Thanks for having me, even though it's a little last minute. I appreciate it.
Well, you know, when people drop out, I think of my favorite friends, and none of them were available, so I called you.
Exactly.
All right.
It was pretty far down the list, but, eventually you got there.
After a while, you just keep flipping through the Rolodex, and finally your name pops up, and it is what it is. All right, let's kick this off with a lovely note. We won't dig too much into this, but congratulations to Frank Stearns. He is joining Sound United as the Senior VP of Commercial Operations. If you've been in this business for more than a minute, you will know of Frank Stearns. He is a fantastic individual and has he's been with quite a few companies. Most recently, he was with Sony as head of their CI division, and congratulations to him on his new endeavor with Sound United. Gentlemen, let's jump into we've actually got some really good stories for the first show of the new year, which I got to say is kind of rare. Normally, this is a very silent moment right before CES news drops, which it is starting to do. So stay tuned next week. We'll have a lot of great stuff coming out of CES. But for this week, we're going to kick this off with a story that comes to us from Residential Systems and Randy Stearns. Understanding what architects need from tech integration firms. This is a fantastic primer article on ways in which to essentially develop relationships with architectural firms. Henry, I want to start with you on this one. As I read through this article, a couple of things come to mind. The main thing being that kind of the overarching principle of this is that there needs to be some common ground. There needs to be some understanding and, dare I say, less ego in the development of a relationship between a home technology professional and a prospective architect that you'd like to work with. Am I oversimplifying that, or is that kind of bang on what we're talking about here?
No, I think it is bang on, and I also think it's important to consider the author. Randy has opined on a bunch of topics just like this one, and I've gotten a chance to sit with him and just listen to him just talk about his philosophy about where he feels like the industry is and is headed, and his ideas have generated hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue for our company. So he's given us ideas like have your guys take the vans home, charge design retainers to get jobs off the street. Having an article like, hey, understand your place in the food chain, understand the architect's pain point, and understand that there's a reason why guys like, Jerry Lynch with System 7, he's a good one, or some of these other folks out there who really get it, who come at it from a design aesthetic perspective. They understand the audience. And I think Randy, with the article, is just saying, hey, look, instead of just another sort of beat you over the head article about you should do this and you should do that, he's really given some pretty achievable kind of objectives there. And I just say this is just another page out of his playbook. I mean, he's got a ton of these, and I mean, there's a part of me I just want to just follow him around and kind of just get all the rest of the good ideas, because I'm not kidding. I mean, every one of these ideas, because he's been in the industry for such a long time, they're money makers. Mm-hmm. And if we just kind of shut up and listen a little bit, especially with him, I can just say, the last 5 years of being in business, his ideas are profitable ideas.
Very good. Jeremy, one of the other things that Randy touches on is essentially that we have to stop the techno speak. And you and I have had this conversation about really multiple aspects of the industry, that we get so caught up in proving, if you will, that we know what we're talking about, that we hype the tech side of things, and we throw facts and figures and numbers and specs at everyone we talk to. Is the key to connecting with people outside of the industry and finding partners? Is it to, dare I say, dumb down what we do and really focus on the experience opposed to the technology?
Well, I don't know if it's dumbed down, but it is keeping in mind that the world outside of the custom integration business is, they want to know the baseline of what they need to know. So if it's a consumer, if it's a client, it's their lifestyle, it's maybe solving some challenges in their home. It's not trying to blow people away with the latest gadget necessarily. There are clients like that. We all know them out there, and there are people that wanted to spend the most money to outdo their neighbor, perhaps. But someone like an architect in this case, they have a specific need. And I think what he's saying here is that we need to realize what that is and understand the personality of this individual that we're working with. Because I think for years I've been editing articles that talk about the importance of getting in early in a project with an architect, a builder, and you kind of put them in this category. You think of them as a certain gatekeeper and personality type, and you kind of elevate them in this personality. And it's the first time I've ever heard them described the way he describes them here, which is they're basically introvert engineer types with a creative bent, which I thought was beautifully stated. And, it's probably pretty accurate. And so they don't like to be sold, they're going to like run and hide if you come at them too hard with some of this stuff. And if you know what they need and what sort of solves problems for them later in a project, whether that's, power, needs for a certain room, spacing for an equipment rack, the zoning for HVAC, that type of thing, and not throwing a bunch of stuff to them that's going to come well after they're involved and not necessary for their insight. I think that's where he's getting at here. And I think it's not really dumbing down so much as it's just finding what the important elements are for the audience that you're addressing.
Focusing. I love it. Mark, I'm going to lodge kind of the practical question to you. One of the things that I don't think I've ever seen anyone mention in the conversation about working with an architect, a builder, designer, whatever, is the focus that he gives to drawings. In this article, he dedicates 3 paragraphs to drawings. We don't.
That drove it home for me.
Yeah, we don't see that. So the question I have for you is, if you're a firm that does not to date produce true drawings, not, hey, I sketched this out, hey, here's a line source drawing, but true architectural style drawings, how do you either ramp up to that, or how do you solve that knowledge gap of walking into an architect and say, hey, we've got a great design for your project, here's a napkin?
Well, Matt, I'm going to throw that right back at you, because I am that guy who doesn't really do drawings. So I read that and I'm like, crap, I've known for a long time I need to do drawings, but I I'm using DTools Cloud. It doesn't have a real drawings feature yet.
Mhm.
I'm not an expert at Visio. I don't have any CAD knowledge. So other than outsourcing it, I don't really have a way to do drawings at this point that I know of well, and I haven't been doing them. I've been marking up floor plans, on my computer using either PDF or PowerPoint or something to mark it up of where things are going, but I'm not creating drawings.
Well, and I would argue that that's the first step, is at least being able to properly, using generally accepted symbols, etc., mark stuff up. Henry, I'm assuming that you guys do drawings. Hopefully you do drawings. Otherwise we're in trouble.
Hey.
Yeah, well, we kind of grade our projects. So if we're going into a project where, we'll say it's like a big boy project, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or big girl project, whatever.
A big person.
Where we know that we just can't bring our maybe standard system documentation to bear. It's sort of like, we're not going to use a howitzer to kill a field mouse, right? But at the same time, we just want to match the weapon to the project. And so our builder business, where we're doing maybe a lot of volume, our in-house system designer can take care of all that, do a lot of that in Visio, it's fine. But you get some of these large estates or places where there's an architect, where there's a lighting designer, where there's interior decorators, and you gotta all of a sudden be now able to work in CAD and Revit and all these things. And there are companies out there, like, I'll shamelessly plug Blue Dog, because they're awesome, and Doug Dodd and Kurt Hayes. You can call up these guys and they'll make you look like $1 million. I was going to go there. Outsource that whole capability, and we've been working with them for 5 or 6 years. And for me, who for the most part, a lot of this I know how to sell really well, and some of the technical stuff I'm good, and some of it I'm not. And to have a backstop like that, where they can again make you look like a rock star, and you can rent that functionality. Because the other thing you got to think that what we think about is the muscle memory, meaning it's all good and well to go and get one of your employees trained in how to use a particular software package or whatever. But if they're not using, Homeworks is a good example of that, right? If you're not doing a homework system every single day, you don't have the muscle memory for that. The next big project that comes along, it's great, you got somebody trained in-house, but again, there's rentable people, folks who are amazing in our industry. They don't compete with us, who they live to make us look like $1 million. And so that's what we've done. I'm not saying that's the right thing, but that's how we've solved for that.
And that's where I was probably going to be going, because just as, I have a finance background, but I need to spend time building the business. I need to spend time doing my accounting. So I have a bookkeeper that I outsource my accounting to. I have a web developer that I outsource my web development to. I'm going to be outsourcing drawings when the need comes up. And now the need hasn't arisen where I have, $1 million projects in estates. But when that need comes, it is companies like Blue Dog that we're going to turn to, because you need to have that relationship before you should have that relationship before you have that immediate need. But yeah, I think that's the way to do it. Is you can't, especially in smaller companies, you can't do everything in-house.
Well, and I would argue, and kind of to wrap that up and surmise that, I think that's something that's overlooked in our industry. We very often try to do everything in-house, whereas if I put on my corporate hat for a minute and my pro AV hat, we outsource all kinds of stuff. In that world, you can outsource literally everything, from sales to labor to installation to certification. You can run a one-man shop that does millions of dollars every year and never hang a TV, connect a cable, do anything, and yet achieve all of that. Something that residential really needs to catch up on, if you will. All right, gentlemen, let's move on to our next story of the day. This comes to us from CE Pro, 9 video calibration content suggestions. Jason Dustall, who is the training and education pro over at AV Pro and an ISF certified calibrator, offers his favorite pieces of content to calibrate and ensure that your displays have the best performances. So Jeremy, I'm going to start with you on this one as the non-integrator on the episode. This is a hotly debated topic every time I bring it up, the art of calibration and whether calibration is worth it, not worth it, etc. In your experience talking with integrators, talking with manufacturers, what's the temperature of calibration versus like generic calibration, not using, as Jason is talking about here, the true ISF method, but calibrating to eye or calibrating to a disc? Where does that fit as far as the general feeling of the industry? Is it something that's valued, or is it something that is a nice sale when you can get it, but I'm never going to see it pushed?
Yeah, I mean, I think that generally speaking, I think calibration in the generic sense, if you're not hiring a professional ISF calibrator to come in and do a home theater calibration, that sort of seems to be part of the cost of the system. I mean, you want it to look the best you can, and various folks are going to have their favorite software for doing that calibration, and ultimately you want it to appeal to that end user. I just added a new 65-inch 4K TV to my main level, and I have a projector as well in the basement. And it was interesting to start comparing the color of each of those now with the new settings that you have on televisions. And my integrator just basically went with here's this setting, the preordained settings, and we prefer this one when we're using this LG television. I disagreed with him. I felt like my eyes were melting a little bit when I was watching it. It was too much brightness. I think you're maybe going to get a little more educated point of view from me just because I've been around this stuff for so long. But your average consumer is going to have their own feelings for dynamic colors and things that maybe the integrator doesn't agree with. So you have to be flexible with it. But I do think that education is really helpful for a consumer. An end user, you need to be able to explain to them what they're going to get from different settings, and provide them with quick ways of changing those settings. Like when I'm watching sports, I do want it to be a little more dynamic, but if I'm watching a movie, I do not want it to look like sports. I don't want it to look like a soap opera. And, those things that your average consumers are struggling with, understanding new TV settings, I think an integrator can play a pivotal role in explaining how those can be adjusted on the fly if you need to.
Very good. Mark, I like to come to you with this type of question because I know your market. I know where you're playing. I know where you're living. Is calibration something that gets asked for in your kind of mid-level market?
Right.
Clientele? Are they asking for it? And if they are and you do it, how long is it before they change it, as Jeremy said, back to Vivid?
Occasionally someone asks for it, because you find that people went online and did a lot of research before they called you. They will ask for it because when you read articles, they say, oh, you have to get your TV professionally calibrated. And we do calibration light, kind of to what you were saying, either using a disc, using our eyes. I'll be very honest, if it's a quick hang and bang job, it's going to be using one of the built-in, to Jeremy's point, preordained, if I can't think, the cinema or the home or the whatever settings. But clients ask for it. Even those quickies where we just put it on the cinema settings, that's the right setting for that home and for the content that they watch. 80% of the time, it's, wow, that looks really dim. I like that setting it came out of the box on better, and it's back on Vivid. I mean, fries and melts my eyes, but that's what they think a TV should look like. And as much as you tell them this is not you show them the skin tones, you talk about how this isn't the right color, like look at how orange or blue that person looks, they don't care in the end. Now, if you're doing, to Jeremy's point, a home theater, which we don't really do because we're in apartments in New York, I would assume then people would be more reliant on the calibration and more trustful that that's the right color. But even when we do projectors, people feel the projector is too dim compared to what they expect a TV screen to look like. So yeah, how long does it take them? Sometimes 30 seconds takes them to change the setting. Sometimes you come back a month later and you see the setting's been changed.
Very good. Henry, let's kind of wrap this up quickly and just bang through the next story real quick. But is calibration, is it something that most applications require anymore? Or is it something where in certain rooms, certain, again, theater applications, you need to do this to get the most out of your picture, to get the highest contrast? But if somebody's going to go buy a top shelf LG or a top shelf Sony Master Series, they're pretty good out of the box.
Yeah, I didn't believe in any of this stuff until I met a guy named Adam Pells, and Adam's a professional calibrator. He flies around the country. I think he flies around the world calibrating expensive projectors and displays. And I sat there with this guy, and because I didn't know what the hell I was doing, I wasn't going to sell my own service or subject, ask our guys to do it. Again, no muscle memory. I could send them to ISF class and then come back, and a year later we get our first job, no muscle memory. Mm-hmm. So that was pointless. So we rented Adam, who is available. He's amazing. But I had him calibrating a $40,000 projector. I wouldn't have had him calibrating a $1,000 TV or a $2,000 TV. I mean, and he's recommending a video scaler that costs $4,000 to $8,000 to pair with the projector. So I'd say that everything it deserves its own match as far as, if we're putting in a little hang and bang TV, no, there's some wizard or some optimum settings and things like that. I mean, and then there's wizard driven calibrators. That's not real calibration. And we get good enough there, and that's really what it is. It's a good enough scenario. But the real expensive home theater stuff, I have seen the difference in it's not just smoke and mirrors. So I will absolutely spec it on those jobs, but only because I was a skeptic turned believer.
Again, use the right tool for the right application. I love it. All right, gentlemen, let's wrap this up with one quick story that comes to us from Residential Tech Today: the failure of big box stores to sell the smart home. Mark, I'm going to start with you on this one. This is a fantastic article by Jay Basin. Hopefully I pronounced your name properly. Jeremy will tell me if I didn't. But Mark, let me start with you on this. Kind of the driving factor of this story, my big takeaway from this story is that when consumers go into a big box, they see an end cap or maybe a full aisle of just this mishmash of smart home, quote unquote, devices. Maybe it's a Ring doorbell, maybe it's a Nest thermostat, Arlo cameras, who knows? But it's a mishmash of stuff just kind of put up with maybe a picture in a background, and if they're really lucky, a 7-inch display showing a video of how easy it is to put this device in. Is it true that smart home can't be embraced on whatever level you want to talk about without being able to walk into a quote unquote showroom and actually experience it?
Yeah, I mean, I have clients all the time who want to see it in action. You can sit there and try and explain to them what smart lighting is and how it functions and how you have the goodbye button that turns everything off, and and everything's all in one app, and what a great experience it is. But until the picture, there's 1,000 words, and coming to visit it and see it and live it is a million words. I mean, there's no way to replicate that on a little end cap in a store. And then the problem you have is that it's all these disparate products, even if they're all from the same company. If they're all Ring, it's individual. It's still like having 6 remotes on your coffee table. You have a different app for everything. Everything's not integrated because it's sensed motion. It's not turning on the lights or locking the door, doing whatever. It becomes it's a disparate mishmash of apps in a folder on your phone. So I don't think consumers grasp it by just seeing it at an end cap like that. And unless they're really techie and the people who are going out and we're doing, smart things or one of those consumer S-Cubs or Vera or something like that, they're not getting the benefit of it other than having another app on their phone.
Henry, it kind of cracks me up that this conversation has come full circle, if you will. When I first started in residential, if you didn't have a showroom to show off, your multi-room audio, your theater, your whatever, you were a trunk slammer. You got no respect in this business at all. The last couple of years, almost everyone has moved away from definitely retail, but even an experience center, a walk-in environment. People are using their own homes. They're using customers' homes. They weren't finding the value, and all the pundits were telling us, don't rent space and get a experience center so someone can walk in once a week, maybe, if you're lucky, to kick the tires and go buy the TV at Best Buy. Now, I'm reading this article, and it's saying the only way to sell smart home devices, again, those usually sub $100 devices, is to have a showroom where people can walk through and experience it. Are we back to everyone should have a showroom, a place to experience these things if they want to sell them?
I walked into a Theater Extreme. They opened one here in 2007, and I call it the never-ending trade show because it was just retail, just walk in. I was driving me insane. We have a hybrid design center. It's appointment only. It's small. It's appointment only. We can show the experiences, but if we didn't have our design center for a lot of the selections that we have to make, etc., I don't know where we would be in a very different place. I'm not saying it would just be a different outfit. And so, but I've never been a fan of retail walk-in. And I've had buddies who've tried kind of a retail walk-in, try to pull some of that retail walk-in into their custom business. And what we do is just what we do. I don't get sort of evangelical about prescribing how it should go, but I definitely worry whenever I hear somebody doing some kind of retail take all comers sort of deal without qualifying the prospects. But I will agree, like, you get somebody into your own environment and you can curate their experiences they're going through. And I think technology is best experienced when it gets out of the way. And so as you're moving through, or even as we're showcasing proposals for somebody, we're doing it on our own systems. We're showing a boardroom, conference room solution using the technology that we're actually proposing that they invested. So, but one thing I wrote down from the article was $113.16 average revenue per transaction. I thought that was interesting. So, I hope our sales guys never see this as a way of saying like that our average ticket is like much higher than this. But
don't forward this point, internally.
Yeah.
How can you justify a showroom or retail space on an average $100 ticket?
No way.
Yeah.
And to Matt's point about the confusion of it, and Mark, your point too. I mean, Guy Kawasaki's sort of famous quote about going down to Fry's and showing them aisles and aisles and aisles of crap. He was talking about the MP3 player before the iPod, and it's the same now. It's a nightmare. I mean, I've gone in. I wrote a little blog about it. I think it creates more opportunity for us, not less. It's just confusing the hell out of people. And so those who value time and want to invest and have a concierge, kind of experience, they'll come see us. And that customer will be there next year, just like they were, before.
Right. I mean, I see what you're saying, because I do the same thing. I have a brochure I use with the client to try and walk them through it and explain it. If they need more, Matt, I was that guy. Right now, I bring them to my apartment to show it to them. Starting in 2 weeks, we just rented another apartment in our building to be my office and my showroom.
Congratulations.
So
that's awesome.
We'll have a dedicated space to bring them and not have to kick my kids out of the apartment to have a client.
You should leave your kids in. Mine sell stuff all the time. It's fantastic.
That's true too. The fact that they can use it all is a huge selling point. Clients love that.
Jeremy, let me give you the last word on this, and then we'll wrap up. Looking through this, to Henry's point, this just screams opportunity to me. The question I have is, how do you convert that potential client who might somehow stumble upon your company, but they're planning on that average spend of $116? How do you convert them from that spend, whether you're using a showroom to help or not? How do you convert them from that spend into what we within the industry would consider our standard entry-level client? Because it's a whole lot more than $116 normally. How do you bridge that gap? Or is that a non-bridgeable gap?
I always think it's a non-bridgeable gap. I think they're just such different types of clients and customers that the guy that's going into Best Buy is not the guy that's looking for, a professional integrated system necessarily. They're going in for a gadget or a TV or something like that, and they may attach something to that Ring doorbell that there are various qualities. We've talked about just a little exchange that they have a Pro line now, but they're Alexa driven home is not going to have the same capabilities that we see from the custom integration channel. And I don't think they know that exists, and I don't think they're willing to pay for it. I don't know. Unfortunately, they're going to miss out on opportunities for this, such things as, really integrated lighting control. These that really make life better in a home. Some better audio experiences that keep it from just being an individual kind of Bluetooth type speaker. Those kind of opportunities happen when you talk to a custom integrator and they can explain and demonstrate for you the difference. But if you're going into Best Buy, I don't know you're going to be in the market for the big time stuff. It just seems like those are different customers.
It's kind of not that different from the person who's on Craigslist trying to find somebody to hang their TV versus the client who calls us. Yeah. And the challenge is a lot of those people going into Best Buy may just not know how to find someone, to be honest. I mean, my wife and I talk about this all the time. You ask any one of our friends, you got a contractor? You got an electrician? They all do. Everybody's had a contractor into their home or an electrician into their home or a painter into their home. Ask people who you don't know, or who say, who do you know? If somebody said, do you know an AV guy, and you couldn't give him my name, who would you give him? And they're like, oh, no. Nope. Nobody knows an AV or a home tech pro or whatever you want to call us. The percentage of homeowners who have that in their Rolodex is so limited compared to the percentage who have a contractor in their Rolodex. It's how do we educate that person who's at Best Buy? Because a percentage of them would do a better system. I don't know what percent. It could be 5%. It could be 50%. I don't know. But some of them, I think, will do a better system if shown something better, if they know it exists.
Yeah, that's true. All right, gentlemen, let's leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us. Henry, if people want to connect with you, learn more about Livewire, or get information about Parasol, where can they do that?
So we've got a website at getlivewire.com. We've got a blog there. We've got social media at Get Livewire. That's the same tag for everything. And then for Parasol, same thing, getparasol.com, or our social media is Get Parasol. Thanks again, Matt, for having me. I really had a good time today.
Always. Thank you so much for joining us. Jeremy, my good friend, if people want to connect with you, learn more about residential tech today, where can they do that?
Please come to our website, restechtoday.com, and subscribe to the magazine, the newsletter. And if you want to find me on Twitter, it's Glowalkie_Jeremy. So
excellent.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Last but not least, Mark Feinberg, thank you, sir. If people want to connect with you, learn more about Home Theater Advisors, where can they do that?
Easiest is hometheateradvisors.com, and social media, Facebook/Home Theater Advisors, and Home Theater Advisors on Twitter as well.
Excellent. Thank you again for joining us. If you'd like to connect with me, you can find me at Matt D. Scott on Twitter and pretty much every other social channel. But more importantly, please visit AVNation.tv, where you'll find this show as well as a wide variety of our other shows with all the verticals that we cover. When you visit the website, please take a moment to check out our supporters. We are extremely thankful for their support and ask that you check them out as well. Thanks again for watching. That's all the time we have for this episode of ResiWeek.